everyone. I'm Jennifer DeRoyan. I'm a certified EOS implementer, and here today with me is Geoff Woods. I'm so excited to talk about his new book. On a quarterly basis, I like to highlight books that I think are important for leaders to read, and I refer to them as the Boise Traction Center Book of the Quarter. But this quarter, we're taking it one step further. AI is a subject that many of my clients are talking about, and knowing Geoff and the launch of his book, I wanted to go a little bit deeper. Welcome, Geoff.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I happen to be recording with you on the day of your actual launch, and you've had some great success. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this book is being received by the public?
It's blowing my mind how well it's being received. It hit number one internationally in my category, which Jennifer, it's been a lifelong dream for me, not only to be an author, but hopefully to hit bestseller, to hit number one so fast. Honestly, I'm really surprised. I got really emotional the other day, and my daughter asked me, "Daddy, why does this matter?" And I really thought about it and said, it's in order to sell that many books, it's not about the sales. It's about that many people believing in you and your message and supporting you. And so that's what I think has been so touching so far. And I shared with you, we actually just got a note today that we've actually sold out of all of our books. And now my printer is scrambling to get more going. So it's a great problem to have. And I'm just so excited.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure that most the people that know you are probably not surprised by this success. So, and we're certainly cheering for you and very happy for you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, so let's dig into it. So at the beginning of your book, you talk about data where you say 100% of leaders said that AI is in their future. 100% of them said that their company would adopt that, but only about 5% have actually done anything about it. Now, I don't have data per se to cite, but I would say anecdotally, when I'm visiting with clients, I would say it's very similar. They know it's important. They're talking about it. It's on their issues list, right, in the EOS world, but not sure where to go from here. Can you talk about your belief around why that is? Why do you think that
Sure.
is?
So the way I found this out is when I was researching the book, I wanted to make sure that I was delivering, like hitting a bullseye in terms of the problems that leaders had. And so I literally sat down with 200 executives one-on-one, from growth companies to the Fortune 500. And that's how I found out that 100% of them said it was the future and that they would adopt it, but less than 5% had taken any action. And at first, Jennifer, this was a gut punch because I had just resigned from Jindal. I had burnt the ships to start this company. And I'm
Yeah.
not a burn the ships kind of guy, but I was so convinced that this was the future. And frankly, I just assumed that every leader was trying to figure this out. And if I came out saying I'm writing a book about this and building a company, I just thought they were going to throw money at me. Wrong,
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that moment, I realized, holy smokes, am I trying to build a business for a problem that doesn't exist? So this led me to asking a very powerful question.
Mm-hmm.
Why? The moment I asked that, it became clear. They're too busy and they simply didn't know where to start. If somebody could show them a simple place they could go from 0 to 1 in a manner that would deliver real business value, they would run through walls. But no one had done that for them yet. And so that became the backbone of the AI-driven leader, was showing a leader, how do you start using AI in a very simple yet powerful manner at an executive level that makes a real impact?
Yeah, you talk about, so step one, I have to be willing to
Mm.
have the courage, right, to go out and test and see what's possible, but then bringing others along. And you talk about being that empathetic leader in that process. Can you talk a little bit about that, what that
Sure.
means?
A lot of the leaders I had talked to said, "Oh yeah, well, we know it's the future and I've delegated this to someone on my team." I genuinely felt that was a mistake. When I was chief growth officer for Jindal Steel, ChatGPT came out. I very much saw it as the next skill to master. And while I had plenty of people I could have delegated this to, I was not going to delegate intelligence around what this could do, or developing a foundational capability with the technology for myself. I found tremendous value using it for strategic thinking and decision making. I didn't look at it as an assistant or as another Google. I started to view it as a thought partner. And the moment I started to treat it that way, I was thinking way more strategically and making faster, smarter decisions that made a huge impact to the business. And this is when I realized this is what leaders need to be doing. Sure, you can build a team to be the champions doing the work in terms of identifying use cases and driving implementation if it's in alignment with your company strategy. But you as a leader cannot abdicate having a foundational level of understanding of the technology. And that's where people have to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was really my next question, right? We talk a lot about delegating and elevating
Mm-hmm.
in EOS, right? Finding those right people and bringing them up. And so you reference that leader as a conductor of teams and technology, which I loved that reference because I often think of it as kind of the conductor of the overall vision, right? As well as those people. But I love that you brought in this technological aspect with the speed of change that AI will bring about is helping them understand their responsibility in going first, right? And
Yes.
setting the tone. You talk a little bit about, right, this operational overwhelm, and you also talk about this empowerment curve that naturally occurs for probably that leader as well as the others that will follow them on this journey. Can you talk a little bit about that empowerment curve?
Yes. So I think there's three elements here. There's the mindset shift that's taking place. Then there is what it looks like to shift the role that you're going to play as a leader, and then what your journey looks like as you go on it. So first, so many leaders are stuck in operational overwhelm. This is one of the great
Mm-hmm.
things about EOS is teaching leaders how to think more strategically and giving them a structure
Mm-hmm.
to delegate and elevate.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another shift here, which is AI can already augment or automate about half of what we do as knowledge workers. That scares some people. I genuinely think this is a good thing because most people's time is consumed with meetings and low value tasks. It is going to take over a lot of the tactical execution that is consuming leaders' time today. That means we have to shift and elevate ourselves, the skills and processes that we follow. So it's shifting away from tactical execution and toward becoming a composer of strategy and a conductor of teams and technology. As composer, you are casting a vision for the future of your business. Then, as the conductor of teams and technology, with the wave of a baton, you get people and technology to align to achieve your most ambitious goals. We have understood the idea of being a conductor of teams in terms of saying, here's where we're going, here's what I need you to focus on. We now have to view technology as a new team member, specifically when it comes to AI. So, understanding where are we going to harness our people and where are we going to harness technology and how do we combine them to create something more great than we used to in the past. Then we get to the empowerment curve. And this is about great. If you understand this, we're going to get out of the tactical weeds of getting stuff done and more toward harnessing AI to do those things, which means we have to be the leader of the technology and the people. What does our journey look like when we are
Mm-hmm.
using generative AI? And this is what the
Mm-hmm.
AI empowerment curve is. You start at the starting point where you are where you are. You have certain notions of it. The first stage is just to have a light bulb moment. This is when you see AI turn a relatable moment into a remarkable experience. Once you have that light bulb moment, you're going to feel excited. You're going to want to try to use this on your own. Then you're going to fall off the cliff and you're going to have what I call the reality check. This is when you realize change is hard and you're interacting with generative AI and it may not be working for you. It might even feel like a waste of time. When that happens, know you're exactly where you should be. It's telling you something. And what it's telling you is you have not yet learned how to communicate with AI. And this is
Mm-hmm.
just like in a relationship, the quality of your communication with another person determines the quality of that relationship. Same thing with AI. Quality of your communication determines the quality of your results. Focus on communicating well with AI, which we can go into if you want. Once you learn how to do that, then all of a sudden you're building momentum. That is the next stage. You're using it, it's getting results. You will get more confidence and competence. And you will start using it in different use cases. And all of a sudden, you will feel like you are accelerating progress. That is the next stage. And more confidence and competence will grow. And ultimately, you'll look up Jennifer and just feel like, I am AI driven. I am getting way more done in way less time. And that's when you're just expanding what's possible, which is the final stage of the AI empowerment curve.
Yeah. All right. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about your AI light bulb moment?
Oh, okay. So the first moment, this was December of 2022. So ChatGPT had only been out for a month. I was in India. I had pulled together the executive teams from every one of our operating companies. So the way the Jindal Group was structured, it was like a family office, lots of companies under the Jindal family. My job was to sit at a group level to figure out the people processes and other processes we needed to drive collective growth across the world. I realized that all of these different companies were kind of operating in silos. And I saw a chance to bring the leadership teams of every operating company together in Delhi to cast a vision for the future of leadership inside the Jindal Group. It's the morning of that offsite. And one of the guys looks over me and says, "Hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?" The answer was no. And he said, "Watch this." And he pulled his phone over and he wrote a prompt and hit enter. And I watched it start to generate text.
Mhm.
And this was my light bulb moment where I went, oh my gosh, this is not another Google where you just ask a question and it gives you a whole bunch of answers. This thing is understanding what he's saying and creating things on the fly. And the moment he said that, I remembered something a mentor in college had told me. I asked him what job I should get after school. He told me I was asking the wrong question. He said, you should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve you no matter where you go, and what jobs will help you develop those skills. When I saw ChatGPT, I saw the next skill to master. And so that began my journey of then saying, okay, I'm going to start playing with this. And I had my own reality check because I was talking to it like another Google. I was asking very vague, short questions, and I was getting terrible answers. But the moment I focused on my communication and learning how to prompt it, that's when I started to really be able to wield it as a very powerful tool. And the moment I started using it for strategic thinking and decision making, it was a game changer.
That's awesome. That was one of my light bulb moments in the book and you made the statement about the quality of your communication or the conversation or the
Mm,
questions that we're posing, no different than it is when I'm interacting with a human, right? Quality communication still matters and it matters in this environment as well. As we think about AI as a thought partner, as what you're proposing. So let's get into that. We've talked a little bit about where people are at, why this matters, and the potential journey that they'll experience as they begin to walk down this road. So let's talk now about this AI thought partner process. You talk about taking some of that operational overwhelm, collapsing the time that it takes to turn data into decisions, utilizing AI as your thought partner. Can you share maybe an example or two
oh,
of
yes.
how we watch that play out?
A month ago, I was sitting down with the CEO and I asked him what his biggest problem was. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, that's easy. I run a manufacturing company. We leased a whole bunch of equipment from this company out of Japan. The debt structure is now going to bankrupt us if we do not get it restructured." I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What have you done?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
walking me through the various strategies that he had deployed and why they didn't work. And he says, ultimately it comes down to the fact that this is a publicly traded company in Japan. It has gone all the way to the board, and they are refusing to restructure the debt because they're worried they'll lose face in Japanese society. Show me how AI can help.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a guy, I mean, talk about a problem. And he had done all these things, nothing worked, and he had no clear next step while he's watching his business literally die. And so I opened up, in this case, Chat GPT, and I wrote down everything that I just shared with you, Jennifer. Every
Mm-hmm.
detail I just shared verbally, I put into text. And so that's context and data that I'm giving it. And then I assigned a persona to it. I said, I want you to act as an investment banker. with deep expertise in restructuring debt interview me by asking one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain additional context. Then I want you to generate 5 non-obvious strategies that I could deploy that would get the board to restructure the debt. First and foremost, can you see how that's not another Google?
Yes, absolutely. It's
And
not
by
another Google.
I gave it lots of context on why I had done. By assigning a persona, AI can pull from all the data it's been trained on and comb it down to the data that's relevant to that so it can simulate that type of person, and then asking it to interview me to pull additional context out of our head and then to deliver a result of 5 non-obvious strategies. The very first question it asked was, do you have relationships with other influential executives in Japan that this board would respect?
Okay.
What a question. And not a question I would have asked. Definitely not a question that this CEO had thought of. And he looks at me and goes, oh my gosh, I do. And so we typed in the answers. And then it asked 2 more questions around Japanese society. And then it came back and said, here's your 5 non-obvious strategies. Number 1, the Saving Face Consortium. You have enough relationships with other influential executives in Japan. Approach them to acquire the debt from you, give them very favorable terms so they would be fools not to take it. Your debt will get restructured, and the board will save face. I look at this CEO, Jennifer,
Yeah.
and he's emotional. And he said,
Right.
Geoff, I haven't slept in 90 days.
Mhm.
I literally had no next step, thinking I was going to go out of business. And in less than 10 minutes, I have hope.
Yeah.
I
That's
texted him
amazing.
recently and asked what's happened. And
Okay.
he said, the ball is moving. We're not there yet, but I think this is going to get done.
That's spectacular. Yeah.
Here's why this works. It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. How many books do you think you've read in your lifetime, Jennifer?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Hundreds, maybe
Hundreds,
thousands.
maybe thousands. You're a learner. That doesn't surprise me. What percent of that collective knowledge do you think you can recall and apply right now?
2%?
2%? Okay. And you have been wildly successful on that 2%, and you've helped other CEOs be wildly successful on that 2%. The old way of doing things is relying on our human processing power. You need to realize that the game has just changed. These
Yeah.
AI models that are at your fingertips have been trained on the equivalent of 200 million books worth of data. It can
Mm-hmm.
recall 100% of that information and harness it to your use case in a fraction of a second. So
Yeah.
if you can start thinking of yourself as the thought leader, and AI, not as an assistant, not as a Google, but as your thought partner, you can harness your leadership with its processing power and vast data to make way better decisions in a fraction of the time.
Yeah. 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 Right. Until we can plug ourselves into something nice to be able to rely on this
Correct.
tool that retains all of that information, right? So I don't have to try to recall it
Yeah.
all. All right. You
Can I give you another
mentioned this.
story? Can I give
Yes,
another story
please
around
do.
this?
Yeah, please do.
So, large medical device company. I
Mm-hmm.
spoke to one of their executives. He had been playing with ChatGPT for marketing purposes. But when I asked him about strategic thinking, he got interested and he said, what does that look like? And I asked the same question. What's your biggest problem? And he said, that's easy. My team was tasked with finding every US adult who had a heart murmur as a kid. But between HIPAA, them moving throughout their life and changing their names when they get married, not only is this finding a needle in the haystack keeps moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, what have you done? And he said, I took 5 of my best people, put them on this full time for 2 months. They have been running, trying to get this done. They just came back with some potential solutions last week. Now let's think about this. These are his rock stars, faced a Herculean task, and they actually came up with legitimate strategies. And I said, great, let's see if AI can help. Anytime I approach a use case, I approach with curiosity rather than expectation. So I opened up good old ChatGPT and I wrote a very strategic prompt, hit enter, and instantly it generated 5 answers. Jennifer, I watched his face. His eyes got huge. And he looks at me and he goes, "These are really good. I want to compare this to what my team came up with. Can we meet in a few weeks?" I said, "Sure." A few weeks later, we hop back on Zoom, and this time he brings his chief of staff, and he is about to jump through the Zoom camera. He is so excited. He's like, "Geoff, this is incredible. You generated the exact same answers a full team of 5 generated
And
over 2
people,
months,
two
but you
months.
collapsed hundreds of hours of work into minutes."
Wow.
I know
Yeah.
nothing about his business. I know nothing about his industry or the product or the problem he was solving for. I knew how to harness AI.
Yeah.
That's the difference maker.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, and you said, I knew how to harness AI. And you mentioned personas when you began talking about this,
Mhm.
utilizing AI as an interviewer. And I think for me, that also helped me think about how to use this as as a thought partner by giving that thought partner some labels. Right now, I want you to show up as the interviewer. Can you give us some other examples of the other personas that we can think about AI as?
Oh man, I've got a company I've been advising who has an activist board. Every quarter's a bloodbath. And the CEO came to me and said, "Can AI help?" Because literally half of the executive team's time is being distracted by board shenanigans when we're trying to work toward an exit. And so I had the executive team sit down. I wrote a prompt where I would get ChatGPT to act as an HR expert with deep expertise in creating personality profiles, interview them, asking one question at a time, as many questions as it needs to understand one board member on a deep level. And once it felt it had enough context about this specific board member, to generate a personality profile. And AI started conducting an interview, and question by question, the exec team is typing in all this information, and it's just the questions are sparking more ideas around how can they describe this person. They're feeding it all back to this AI model. And then it said, "Great, here is your personality profile for Susan." And it spat it out. And they read it and they went, "Oh, that's really good." They copied it, pasted it into a Word doc, saved it, and said, "Great, now let's do this for our next board member." They repeated
Mhm.
that process for every board member. We then created a custom AI model, which we called it the AI board. We fed it the personality profiles of every board member and told it its job was to adopt the persona of each board member. And we would upload our upcoming board deck, and it would have to simulate them to spot the potential landmines that we had missed before the board meeting so they could improve their deck. Then after the board meeting, because the board meeting was recorded, we would take it, the transcript from the meeting, throw it back into the AI model and say, "Here's what actually happened, compare it to what you thought would happen, and make yourself better."
Okay. So continuing its learning about those individual
Sure.
personas and how to interact more effectively with them.
So let me streamline this for you. You
Yeah.
can, you, Jennifer, have expertise. The
Hmm.
clients you work with have expertise, but there are so many things that they are not experts in. You may not be a CFO. You don't need to be. You can ask AI to act as a budget conscious CFO. It will do it. You can ask it to act as an aggressive, growth minded board member. It will do it. You can describe your most difficult customer, describe them in vivid detail. It can adopt their persona. I used it. I asked it to become a branding expert, and I had it generate a full blown marketing branding kit for me that I then sent to a branding agency who said, "That would have cost $20,000 and it would have taken us 2 months." I did it in 13 minutes with
Wow.
no expertise.
Yeah.
So, this is the great equalizer. Focus on your core competence, but harness AI to take yourself to the next level. But then realize that there are areas that are not currently your area of strength that suddenly you can bring strength to the table.
Yeah. Well, speaking of not my area of strength, so one of the personas that you talk about in the book is that of the challenger.
Ah,
And I don't my Colby is a 3393, so that
that's me
my
too.
nine is it? Okay.
Literally.
Yeah, so that nine And it kind of relates to what, you talked about earlier. In my mind, I see only opportunity, and I am
Mhm.
always looking through the lens of course it's going to work. It's going to be amazing, right? That's always my take. And so I need that challenger to ask me questions and help me sometimes see what I can't see. And I love
Sure.
the idea of being able to say, here's my vision, here's where I want to go with this. And then letting it, give me some critical ideas to consider. And it doesn't mean that I have to change what I'm doing, but I at least need to take into consideration how I might change components of my strategy to react to this,
Sure.
some of the thoughts that it brings up. I love that.
It's tough
Yeah.
to read the label when you're inside the box, and there is a tremendous cost when you do not challenge your biases and assumptions. This is something that Blockbuster learned the hard way. Netflix approached them to acquire them. What people don't know is the reason Netflix approached them to acquire was because Netflix was $50 million in the hole and they didn't see a path to winning.
Mm.
But John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster at the time, was so confident in their business model around customer foot traffic, brick and mortar stores, charging customers with late fees, that he declined it. And over the next several years, he started to see the writing on the wall and went, oh, shoot, I made a mistake. We've got to go compete with Netflix. But then Carl Icahn steps in, gobbles up the majority of the publicly available shares. And Icahn is just saying, no, we've got to push for short-term results. That doesn't resonate with anybody listening to this, focusing on short-term results at the expense of long-term growth. That never happens.
No.
And that distraction at the board level is what created enough space for the flywheel of Netflix to spin faster and faster until they couldn't be caught.
Yeah.
So making great decisions is not about the idea that you have and running with it. It's about getting the best information in front of you so you can make the best decision possible. The only way you can do that is if you look to see what you can't see. And so I
Hmm.
love going to AI and saying, for example, real use case. I had somebody in my community called The Collective. He's been flipping houses, been very successful scaling operations to flip houses. And he created his strategic plan to scale his
Hmm.
business. I had
Hmm.
him throw it into AI and tell it
Hmm.
to act as a growth minded board member to really challenge and pressure test his thinking, to interview him, asking one question at a time to understand, does his plan really have the sufficiency to deliver the result? Are there things he should be seeing that he's not seeing? Is there a simpler path for him to get to where he wants to go? And at the end of the interview, to give him an analysis of what the AI liked about his plan, what it didn't like about his plan, and the top changes he should make to his plan. What's crazy is it came back and said, while your current strategic plan could get you to where you want to go, you also want a certain quality of life outside of work. There is a path for you to achieve your goals faster with less effort. My recommendation is that you stop flipping houses altogether and instead focus on acquiring multifamily real estate and service based businesses surrounding them. With just that one conversation with an AI model, he, instead of going and getting another flip under contract that would net him 10 grand, he went and got a building under contract that instantly would net him $1 million in equity
Yeah.
because he had AI act as the challenger.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. That's a great example. And you talk about that a little bit about people putting a ceiling on themselves
Mm,
versus imagining what could be possible, what would have to be true. And
yes,
so I want to talk a little bit about weaving these concepts into the EOS model. So when
sure.
we're implementing EOS, we talk about three primary objectives. First is vision, right? Creating a unified vision. We're all on the same page around where we're going, how we're going to get there. Traction in that we're instilling discipline and accountability to get results and achieve that vision, and then healthy in that we're creating cohesive, open and honest, fun-loving teams. And so as I was reading the book, I was layering that on those objectives. And
Great.
you talked a little bit about this strategy. and how people can take this and let AI challenge your thinking about what's possible, and maybe lift that lid off of our limiting beliefs, right?
Hmm.
Do you have
Hmm.
any other thoughts around how people can use this for strategy? Use this as one example. And then I want to talk a little bit about how you, again, this fits so nicely within EOS. On a quarterly basis, you're
Sure.
asking, how are we doing? What else could we be doing? Talk a little bit about
Sure.
that.
So, and I've seen this from when I was building the company behind the one thing, because a lot of what I used to do was facilitate strategic offsites for
Mm-hmm.
companies. Companies
Mm-hmm.
would usually set their goals based on current constraints, current budget allocation, current team, and they would set goals that they thought they could accomplish in the next year. The challenge with that mindset is you are attaching yourself to the way things used to be
Mm-hmm.
versus reimagining who can we become and what would have to be true for us to get there. So this is a real example that was shared later in the book around the power company. Did you get to that part?
Mm-hmm.
So I was brought in by the board to help this power company scale. They had done, I think, 273 million in free cash flow the previous year. Decent
Yep.
sized company. And the
Mm-hmm.
board gave them a mandate to hit 525 million in free cash flow.
Yep.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy growth. But then the board just said, "Hey, for funsies, if you hit 850 million, there'll be a big payout." The problem was it was so big that the exec team didn't even want to try. Why even try if it's impossible? And I asked a question, which was, what do you think the purpose of a goal is? And the answers were summed up as to achieve a result. And I challenged them to think a bit differently, not as the destination you arrive at, but as a compass to inform who you can become. And I said, take all your judgment, all the negativity that you have around this. I want you to go put it in a box over there, like a metaphorical box. Just put it over there. Today, we are going to ask the question. I am your fairy godmother. I'm going to wave the wand. Anything that you want to become true can become true. What would have to be true for us to get to 850 million? And the whole day, they were getting into, well, we would have to make these investments. We'd have to bring these people on. We'd have to get these types of customers. We'd have to start focusing on this type of a specific type of product or service. And by the end of the day, or toward the end of the day, one of the executives looks up and goes, "We did it." I looked at him and asked, "What do you mean?" And he looked at the plan and he said, I just added everything up. If everything on this plan happened, we'd hit 850 million. And I look around the room and everybody's all excited and smiling and their heads are nodding. And I asked, quick question, how often do plans go according to plan? And he didn't miss a beat. He went, never.
Right?
And I said, so we don't yet have a plan to succeed. We still have a plan to fail. And that
Mm.
was just like the gut punch because
Ugh.
they were
Yeah.
so proud of themselves. They had stretched their minds so far. And I just looked at the CEO and said, you got to have a buffer. How much would the plan have to line up to for us to have the sufficiency so when things fall short, we'd still clear the goal? And he just said it'd have to be 1 billion.
Mm.
And the energy in the room was just so dense. And I said, suspend your judgment. What would have to be true? And they got back to it. By the end of the day, the things on the plan lined up to $1 billion in free cash. Throughout that year, Jennifer, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. The market
Mm.
prices of power tanked, not inside our control. Expansion projects we were banking on to expand our capacity delayed. But because they had come up with things that would give additional sufficiency, and then they reverse engineered that into their actions they would focus on, which is your traction. This team that did 273 million the previous year did $828 million in free cash flow.
Yeah.
The moral of the story is none of us know what we are capable of achieving. So why try to tell yourself that when you set your goals? Don't make the goal the finish line. Make it the compass that will inform who you have to become. Then align your people in technology on a trajectory with that target, and let's see where you can go.
I love it. I love it. The compass that helps guide you to who you want to become.
Correct.
I
And then
love it.
this is where the quarterly came in, which is I focused on 4 drivers of growth with Jindal: strategy, execution, people, and technology. Strategy is the competitive advantage you're building. Execution is your strategic plan. People is about right people, right seats, right things. And technology is about harnessing technology to either help our people be more productive, operations more efficient, or our products or services more valuable. And on a quarterly basis, sitting back and asking deep questions to reflect on what is our strategy? Is our strategy still our strategy? Have there been shifts in the market where we would need to revisit who we want to become over the long run? Execution. How are we doing goal versus actual on our strategic plan? Where have priorities shifted? Because they're always shifting. Are we focusing on what matters most? Is there something new that we need to focus on that needs to be accounted for? And how are we going to prioritize that? People. Your goals and your priorities change, but do people's job descriptions? Usually not. So now you got lots of people in the boat rowing very enthusiastically in different directions. So how do we
Right.
keep our people rowing in the same direction at the same cadence? And then technology, how can we better harness technology? So it was that type of a review that I drove through the companies that drove the growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. In EOS, we call that shared by all, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we
Mm-hmm.
ensure that everybody's coming along with us and we're all marching towards this future destination, right? Utilizing this as a compass to be who we want to
That's right.
be. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to put this through the lens of more than 99% of the businesses out there are small business. And of those, probably 96, 97% of them have less than $10 million in top line revenue. Okay.
Okay.
So let's assume I'm an entrepreneurial leader running one of these organizations. Geoff, where do I start?
All leadership begins with self-leadership, especially at your size.
Mhm.
Start by becoming a practice leader of the technology and figuring out what it looks like for you to become AI driven. My strong suggestion, if you're in the visionary or integrator seat, is that you start by using it for strategic thinking and decision making. You trying to figure out how to write a better email with ChatGPT is a waste of your time. Most people who are playing around with generative AI, which is ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, these are various large language models, they are using it for tactical use cases, the 80% tasks that only drive 20% of the results. I take a fundamentally different approach. If you're going to go through the learning curve of how to communicate with this thing, why are you going to apply it to things that don't matter? Let's
Mhm.
focus it on the 20% priorities that will drive 80% of your results. And at a leadership level, it boils down to how you think,
Yeah.
because your thinking drives your actions, which drives your results. So here's a great use case. I'm going to give you a framework for a prompt. I want you to think of a problem or an opportunity that you are facing in your business that matters. You will literally open up one of these tools. If you don't have one, I have one for free on my website at AI Leadership that I've specifically designed to be a thought partner. And just describe it. Just start talking to it. Hey, I've got this problem I'm facing, and describe it in vivid detail. And then say, for context, here's the things I think you need to know about my business, and tell it what you think it needs to know about your business. Then you say, I want you to act as my thought partner by interviewing me, asking me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain additional context. I wanted to ask one question at a time, Jennifer, because otherwise it'll ask you 3 at once. I'm giving it a limit because I don't want it to conduct an hour-long interview. And
Okay.
once it's asked those 3 questions, I want you to and describe what task it is. So it could be, hey, I've got a goal to double the growth of my business in the next 12 months. For context, this is what you need to know about my business. Be my thought partner. Interview me asking one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain additional context. And then tell me what you like about my plan, what you don't like about my plan, and the top changes. Or tell me 5 non obvious strategies that I should consider to achieve my goals even faster with less effort. And let it conduct an interview and give you a result.
I love it. It's a visionaries thinking tool. Their thinking thought partner, right? I love it.
That's right.
And so that's a great simple first step to take and begin utilizing this resource, this amazing, powerful tool as a thought leader in their life to help take them where they want to go, live ultimately that EOS life as an AI driven leader. So Geoff, where do they find you? Where should they go for more information?
Awesome. So the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kindle, Audible. It's The AI Driven Leader. Also, if you listen to podcasts, same name, The AI Driven Leader, and the website is aileadership.com. I do have a free crash course on the site that will teach you how to start communicating with this. I will give you a prompt library and the thought partner so you can start engaging with this, because I want people to have that light bulb moment and be able to get into production with it pretty quickly. Just go to aileadership.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Geoff, for taking the time. Again, congrats on the success of your book, and thank you for bringing us along and looking at AI through a different lens.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.